Right. Hello, guys. Welcome along to the Apprentice Angle. Been a long while since I've managed to do one of these. Been very busy at Royal Ascot and various other meetings too, but I'm pleased to be back today. I think we're on episode 14 or 13 now, so it's moved along quite quickly. And I'm pleased to have a special guest with me today. I'm pleased to be joined by Jockeys agent Ross Birkett. Ross, thank you for coming on. And how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Luca. Yeah, it's middle of the season now, so very busy. This Saturday in particular, there's loads of racing, and it's good to have plenty of opportunities for the jockeys. I'd like to thank you on behalf of all the apprentices. I know you do a lot of hard work for them, getting their profile out there, and it's very much appreciated. Like there's so much racing on now, it's hard for the mainstream media to cover every single winner. So yeah, when you're highlighting the winners for apprentices across the country, it is very much appreciated by them.
Thank you, Ross. It's greatly appreciated, of course. So you're a jockey's agent, and there'll be a lot of people watching this today or whenever they choose to watch it who have probably heard of what a jockey's agent is, but don't know the day-to-day running of the role. So for you, you're in charge of booking jockeys' rides, and away from the races, you're in charge of managing your jockeys you're with. But for people who don't quite know what it entails, could you sort of shed some light on what the day-to-day running of a jockey's agent is?
Yeah, so basically, a lot of your day revolves around the deadline set by the BHA for entries and declarations. So entries are made 5 days before a certain race. So they close at 12 o'clock on that day. So during that period, you have the transparent entries on the BHA admin site that the agents can look at. You're looking what horses are being entered, particularly for myself. I have three apprentice jockeys, so if there's an apprentice race on any of those days, you'll be pinpointing those. First and foremost, you've got to see where their bosses have entries, because obviously they take preference over anyone else, and then you can kind of work out where you're going to go then, or if it looks like you're going to be spare, then you can pinpoint any meeting you can get a ride, really. And then 2 days before races, 48-hour declarations open. So that's from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the morning. And that's where kind of the nitty gritty is done. Before then, you'd like to be organised and have rides at certain meetings. But a lot of the time, especially now on turf with the ground changing and things, trainers wouldn't be 100% certain where they're going. So declarations is where they have to make that final decision, and you try and just polish things up and maybe just nick a ride here or there where you can. And yeah, again with apprentice races, if there's a spare one going there, try and get one of your jockeys on one of those horses.
Looking through your sort of trio of jockeys you work with, you've got Fred Larson, Rose Dawes, and George Bass on your books. We'll sort of individually go through each one at the moment. Fred's had a good season so far, of course. Chipstead winning a nice big handicap at York, his long-time ally now. After you could say it was probably cruel losing to Portland at the back end of last season. That's Stuart's inquiry too. But Fred's going along quite nicely at the moment, and of course rode Mrs. Meader for you a couple of weeks ago as well.
Yeah, Fred's been with me from the start. Really, he's such a good lad. When I took him on, he had 9 winners, and we're up to the high 60s now, I think. So yeah, he's whittled away that claim, picked up some good rides along the way. Chipstead has been really good to us. Obviously, first pass of the post in the Portland. I mean, 9 people out of 10 say he should have kept the race, but obviously the stewards in the appeal thought the other way, which is very unfortunate. But at the end of the day, he still had that high profile win, got an interview on ITV Racing that day, and it did help pick up some rides towards the back end of last year. And then Chipstead's been good to us again this year. Won a big handicap at York, just got some momentum going, and that came at a crucial time as well, because Fred picked up a good few bans in the spring. I think he was out for almost 2 weeks, banned, whip, and interference, and they really do knock your momentum when you pick up those bans. So yeah, it's good to get that, and now he's tipping along nicely. Yeah, obviously we have to go where his boss Mick Appleby goes, but Mick's very good to him. He's let him ride Michaela's Boy in a listed race, and yeah, picked up some good other handicaps rides for Mick as well. And when you're riding for someone like that, you're always going to do well. He has so many runners, and he does so well with his horses. So yeah, Fred's ticking along nicely.
Of course, Rose Dawes as well. I've spoke to her twice now over the course of the winter and into the turf season itself. She's really, for me, been one of the apprentice sort of biggest improvers of the season, really. She's really come into her own now. She's not too far off riding out a £5 claim. She's been seen to good effect many a times this season, especially aboard Trey Fleur as well at Goodwood, a horse who hadn't won for, I think, 2 years prior to that race at Goodwood. But she's very good value for her £5. She does lightweights too, which is always very handy for an apprentice, but she's moving in the right direction at the moment.
Definitely, yeah. The key thing with Rose is she's light, and that does help pick up some some nice spare rides. We picked up one in the £100,000 London Gold Cup at Newbury a few weeks back for Dominic French Davis, Ifka Zaro that was. So yeah, being able to claim £5 off bottom weight is a huge asset. And like you say, she's just improved end on end. She actually rode my boss Julia Fielden a winner in an apprentice race. That was for like 10 winners or less a couple of years ago, and kind of noticed her from then. And she didn't have an agent at that point, so picked her up then. She'd had about 5 winners then, and now yeah, she's well into a £5 claim now and whizzing along nicely. Again, she was another in the spring to pick up a few bands, just adapting to the new whip rules. She was only going 1 over on a couple of occasions, but that's 4 days just for going 1 over. So yeah, but she's learned a lot from that, and yeah, she's been band free for a while now, and she had a nice winner last night for Jack at Epsom, Flash Bardo. She gets on really well with that horse, and again, she's lucky to have a boss who gives her plenty of opportunities, and horses just run for her. You could put her on kind of a lazier type, and they'll be tanking away with her, and horses just seem to feel with confidence and kind of find a bit of form that they hadn't shown in a while with Rose, which is really an asset.
And of course, with George Bass too, arguably one of the more taller apprentice jockeys in the weighing room, so he does well to sort of manage his weight. But he's had a very good start to his season. We won't go back to Nottingham at the start of April. He had a good Class 2 stakes winner for Jack Shannon, I think. Jack Shannon now, I should say. And he's one of the more established jockeys in the weighing room in terms of apprentices themselves now. But he's had a good start to his season, not far off riding out his claim now as well. But things are looking up for George too.
Yeah, George is a class rider. He really is. Does well with his weight, like you say. He can do 8 stone 7, so claim 3 off 8 stone 10, and does well to manage that weight. But he definitely is underrated. I think he's just probably, if he can just get a big Saturday winner somewhere. I mean, he's in the John Smith Cup on Saturday for his boss. If he could nick a race like that, that would really set his profile higher, and then he'd be just going up to the next level, because the riding ability is not in doubt whatsoever. Again, he's a bit tied down by where his boss wants to go, and plans can change at the last minute. But yeah, if he's at any meeting, you wouldn't be put off using him, that's for sure.
And how has the new whip rule sort of affected, especially with you and the apprentice jockeys, the more younger ones in the weighing room and the more inexperienced ones? How have these sort of new whip rules coming in, have they affected your sort of trio of jockeys in any way? Because we see recently Gina Mangan's been hit with a long ban as well over a 6-month period. Many other jockeys too, Frankie as she now as well. So it's not just the inexperienced ones, the senior jockeys are getting called out too. But what would be your overall impression of these new whip rules? Do you think they're good for racing, or do you think they're just basically trying to appease a small group of people who, in a nutshell, don't want racing to be a sport full stop?
Yeah, I think they probably could have. Eventually it's going to get whittled down even more, I think. And I think if on this first step they'd gone down to kind of 3 or 5 strikes, then we would have been there already and could have left it at that for a long time. So yeah, you've got to remember, most jockeys who have adapted to these new rules have been used to the older rules, and where you could get away with going 2 over, win a race, and just get a day or so. But there's nothing wrong with the rules. I mean, races are very clean to watch. You never see anyone flogging a horse anymore. It's just the penalties are so severe, like going 1 over and getting 4 days. George actually used third on Gearing's point for Sheena West a couple of months ago. Would he go? He went used it 9 times, so 3 over, and that what did he get? What did he get for that? Like 10 days or something. It's just yeah, a long time. But they're all intelligent riders, and all my lot have learned from it. And the last few months have been very clear of suspensions. And yeah, I'm more worried for myself, really. I mean, I ride as an amateur, and my last winner was January, and I went a couple over and got a few days. So yeah, luckily I haven't been in a tight finish since then. But yeah, I think I would be at bigger danger of getting in the ban than any of my apprentices anyway.
And sticking with you and your riding career, you're not just a good agent, you've also been a very accomplished amateur rider too. I was at John Berry's last week and we touched upon Roy Rocket, and John got very emotional. Of course he would, because the horse was such a special horse to him. You won Roy Rocket at Brighton a couple of years ago. Just what was he like as a horse? He was a right character on social media. The people loved him. But for you to ride a winner on him at Brighton, his favourite track, what was just that whole experience like for you?
Yeah, he was a unique character, that's for sure. I never actually rode him out at home. I think John just rode him himself, and by the sounds of it, if a jockey came in to ride him out, it just put you off ever wanting to sit on him at the races because he was a bit of a lunatic. But at the races, yeah, as soon as you got on him, he wanted to get out and get done. And then he was a strange one. He's the only horse I've ever ridden. He used to go in the stalls last because he would rear up otherwise. And as the stalls open, he would neigh. It was, yeah, never known any horse do that before. But in the race, he was, yeah, very simple. You just had to get plenty of cover, get him settled. That's why I usually sat at the back and come with a late rattle. So that's why Brighton suits them a lot, because you can come from behind there with a stiff finish. I mean, it's well publicised that all his wins came at Brighton, but I was close second on him at Newbury, and he was, that was the closest he ever came to winning anywhere else. And it was no fault of his own. I just think Brighton races were always run to suit him. I rode him in an amateur derby. Epsom finished fourth as well. He was more than capable of running well at other places, but he just did come alive at Brighton. Yeah, first time I sat on him, I won on him about 2 years prior to winning on him for the second time, but it was the second time that really sticks in the memory. By then he built up a big fan base. It was his 50th career run and his eighth Brighton win, and never known anything like it. Like, I'd only ride at smallish tracks with small crowds, but coming into the last furlong, the cheer, it just reverberated. You wouldn't normally hear much in the finish, but you could just hear the roar for him that day. They absolutely loved him there, and yeah, you can see why he was a character and trained by John, who's real good ambassador for the sport as well. So it was a great story. It's just sad how it came to an end, but yeah, everyone does have lots of fond memories of him.
For you yourself, was there ever the inkling in the back of your mind that you could have made it possibly as an apprentice, or was it always the plan to just stick amateur, obviously help out Julia as well, and possibly move on to become an agent later on down the line as well?
Yeah, hey, it crossed my mind when I was kind of 17 or 18. But I've always been very tall. I wouldn't be far off 6 foot tall, and from a young age, I was quite big as well. So the weight would have always been a struggle, and I did well at school. Yeah, I stayed on for sixth form, ended up going to university as well. So I always had a bit of an education there. You do wonder what if, but I don't, to be honest, at that age, I don't think I would have been good enough. The apprentices now, kind of, you've got to be so good from the word go, whereas I probably wasn't strong enough or streetwise enough. So yeah, I don't think racing's at a loss for not going apprentice anyway.
And just sticking with the apprentices, you said how strong they are. You've been in racing a lot longer than I have, and you've seen a lot more than I have as well. But in terms of the apprentice ranks themselves, do you think that this year in particular, it's arguably the most strongest sort of division we've ever had? Because you go all the way through, even down to £7 claimers. There's so much good value everywhere. We saw Connor Planis yesterday, bought Quinnock for Stuart Williams. He's been a success story in himself, the horse and rider. Obviously, we've got Benoit, Harry, and Billy at the top of the food chain technically with £3 claims that are all going to go soon. But the future in terms of the young jockeys coming through at the moment, I don't think it's in it. Arguably, isn't in its best place it's ever been, really.
Definitely, there are barely any bad apprentices. We're really such strong strength in depth. Probably the last time I can think of it being so strong was when you had, like, I think Martin Lane won the Apprentice Championship, and you had like Martin Harley, Adam Skitzer, Kieran O'Neill, real good riders have gone on to make a career for themselves since. But this year, I mean, if you had a spare ride in the apprentice race, you could think of 20 different people you could put on. But that's the thing now, because it is so competitive. As soon as you start riding, you've got to be really good and make an impression, and that's been the case. And I suppose they've got no excuse not to be good as well. They get a lot of coaching now, lots of advice. They all have jockeys coaches who keep them going on the simulators. So by the time they're even having their first ride, they've ridden hundreds of races on the mechanical horse, and yeah. But like I say, really good apprentices about at the minute, and this is fascinating following them all. And it'd be interesting to see kind of who makes it and who doesn't. And it won't be down to any ability. It's just kind of getting the breaks. Once you lose that claim, you need the support to keep you going. And yeah, it's super tough from my perspective, kind of thing. Trying to get spare rides is really tough because there's always a few more popular apprentices about. But yeah, it is fascinating to watch.
It's finally, Ross. Julia's Yard at the moment has been going along quite nicely. Of course, we touched upon Mrs. Meader. She's probably the more established flag bearer for the yard at the moment. But all in all, the yard are in good form at the moment. The horses are running well. and it's been a successful season so far.
Definitely, yeah. We're bit of a conscious decision this year to have a quieter winter, mainly because a lot of the owners just don't want to go racing in the winter. It's kind of wet and miserable and dark on the all weather. We wouldn't have any jump sources, so we saved a lot of the team for the summer, which meant we had a quiet winter, quiet spring. But then once they've had a couple of runs, they're back in top form. And yeah, the last 6 weeks or so, we've really banged in the winners, which makes life a lot easier. Yeah, Julia's got a great team of staff at home, great team of owners that just love their racing. No kind of superstars in the yard, but we're going to like the Brightons and the Yarmouths and nicking a winner here or there. So it's good to see, and not with expensive horses as well. I mean, we never have a massive budget to spend at the sales, so we try and make every penny count and give the owners as much fun as possible.
That's good, Ross. Thanks for that. I'll stop.